Jakob, you're muted.
Welcome everyone, once again to our program, Living is Dying. And as always, we'd like to begin with acknowledging the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and wherever you might be, and recognizing their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So today, we'll begin with the reading of the work we're presently studying, Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche's Living is Dying. And last time we concluded really with the section and also we're going to be going into some greater depth here today, actually guided by Rinpoche. We're very fortunate to have a recording of Rinpoche teaching on this, and we're simply going to be playing the recording of Rinpoche reading and commenting and expounding on a short piece instruction given by Guru Padmasambhava to his principal disciple Yeshe Tsogyal about the process of death, and particularly how to prepare for that. So in the text here, like I said, we've gone through what we call the dissolution stages. And this happens at the time that we're essentially passing away. The earth element dissolves into the water element dissolves into the fire element dissolves into air, and we say again, air dissolves into consciousness. And then there is at that time what we call the separation of body and mind. And that's essentially where we would be pronounced clinically dead. Now, for the practitioner, this moment, like, okay, then I shall read what Rinpoche says here. Buddhism tells us that for a spiritual practitioner, this moment of complete nakedness, the moment of death, is extremely precious. At death, the forces of nature actually help us to appreciate, recognize, and grab hold of the innate nature that has always been within us, the Buddha. The moment of death is especially precious if the practitioner is already acquainted with the nature of mind. This is why Buddhists develop the skills and abilities they will need to make the most of the opportunities that death naturally brings while they're still alive. So this is what you could say this entire course is about. The course unfortunately cannot say, well, we've done a lot of research and now we have a pill that you just need to take at the moment of death and that will solve your problem. Or we have a particular mantra, or we have a particular idea that you can hold on to. And you just have to remember that at the time of death. Unfortunately, it's not like that. It's like everything, we need to accustom ourselves to essentially putting an end to our confusion. And this applies, of course, at death, but particularly, I mean, even within this life, the degree to which we could be less confused, less held by our ordinary narratives, our ordinary agitated states of mind, the more we could come to appreciate the conditions that is naturally innate, abiding, pure clarity. And this is really, you could say, the gospel of Buddhism, that we possess Buddha nature, that we intrinsically possess a capacity that is uncontaminated by whatever agitation, by whatever confusion there is. And whatever you have of the Buddha's teaching, these all convene on this single point of unveiling this what we could think of as a potential, but in fact, and particularly in Vajrayana, we really think of in terms of being our true nature, a nature that's already spontaneously present. And all we are encouraged to do is simply just look in that direction. The instructions that we're going to be coming across here, they advise us to not be distracted. The principal instruction really is for us simply not to be distracted. But that takes training, and that takes training within this present lifetime, that we actually already know what it is that we're not distracted from. And that's why it's necessary that we acquaint ourselves with, we call it meditation, and sometimes meditation sounds as if it's something that is different, a different realm. But as you heard from Ben Isbell, then what we're doing here is really just cutting through an ordinary condition of, you could say, narratives, thinking, and essentially settling into a capacity for just being present, fully alive. And this is the practice of mindfulness. Of course, within the Buddhist teaching, we consolidate that with a perspective that we call vipassana. We understand how, in fact, all the various projections that we have, they are, in fact, just that. They are projections. And that the principle, you could say, the most, what do we call the most primitive, basic ontology of our being, the most basic thing that we can feel, that we know, is this awareness, this consciousness, we carry it with us 24/7, while everything else is subject to changes and conditions. There is this nature of mind that we always are carrying with us, that is, you could say, quintessentially what we are, and it's the basis for everything that we experience. To acquaint ourselves with that, to become friends with that, to become at peace with that, this is what we refer to then as meditation. And this is then the scope of the practitioner. So as much as we have countless different Buddhist teachings, they all convene on this single point. And so this is what we're encouraged to do in order to prepare for this moment when we pass on. In the instruction that we're going to hear, there's some emphasis on us actually clearly recognizing and understanding what this is. It then also quite realistically says, if we cannot fully realize this at the time of death, then what is going to happen to us is essentially that the nature of our mind in its capacity for manifestation will display. And that's where we talk about everything that we experience in this ordinary life. You could say all comes from this potential of mind that we refer to as mind's luminosity. And this is then described in various ways, but particularly then famously, we have the Tibetan Book of the Dead that talks about this in terms of 100 peaceful and wrathful deities, experiences of sounds and lights and so forth. All of that really is just a description of the manifestation and the potential of our mind, that then you could say without the body and without the ordinary, you could say, encapsulation or limitation of our physical body, then you could say is unleashed then at the time that after our mind and body separate. And that's where then it's so important that whatever happens, and this is the quintessential instruction really with regards to what we call the intermediate state between death and rebirth, that we recognize that we're not distracted. And that's where we train presently in this practice of mindfulness in order to not be distracted at the time that we go through this. So this is where the instructions then go through what we will experience. And then Rinpoche then emphasizes what we can do short of that to make aspirations that we may be reborn in a place favorable where we can practice the Dharma or where we will meet the Dharma again. And so the moment of death is especially crucial for Tantrikas. This is then back to the text, because even though you failed to achieve enlightenment while you were alive, you have developed the skills you will need to succeed at the moment of death. And we do say that at the moment of death, when the mind and body separate, there is a greater degree of clarity. We sometimes say 7 times greater degree of clarity. And it is an opportunity then for those who have familiarized themselves with this basic ground of our being to then completely awaken that. And this is where we say delusion falls away. And this is where there's an opportunity for perfect enlightenment. So at this point then, we'll then listen to Rinpoche, and I shall play a recording. Okay, just a sec. So let's see here.
Okay, fortunate one, listen. Even though there are many different kinds of physical posture, whatever is the most comfortable right now, that will suffice. Even though there are many different methods to control your prana, with the mantras, inhaling and exhaling of air, recitations of the sutras, but keeping silence is the essential. Even though there are many different methods of subduing this mind, such as shamatha, analytical meditations, the essence is not contriving. Therefore, trust to this method of no contriving. Practice these three methods of body, speech and mind again and again. When you look at this mind, you cannot say this mind does not exist, because there is something that thinks, that plans, that does the hearing, tasting, thinking, fantasizing, imagining. At the same time, you cannot say it exists, because it doesn't have a color, shape, none of that. And this is the absolute view. After hearing this view, a practitioner must try not to get entangled with all kinds of thoughts that keeps on appearing in our mind. When they come, just recognize them and relax. With a one-pointed trust and devotion, think that this alone will suffice to take us to the other shore. Now, for those who are about to die, gradually decrease the attachment to all the worldly matters, things like your family, friends, house, things that you have been wanting to do, things that you have been planning to do. Especially get used to not to be attached to those whom you are close with, such as your beloved friends. Instead, only remember the Guru, who may appear as the human being, but he or she is none other than all the Buddhas together. When you are about to die, gradually you will feel very heavy. This is nothing but your earth element is beginning to degenerate. So do not panic. Then you will also experience dryness in your mouth and nostrils. Don't panic. This is your element of water beginning to disintegrate. You will then feel cold, or you will feel no warmth. Fire element is about to dissolve. You will begin to not remember how to breathe in, even though you will still able to breathe out. This is because the air element is about to disintegrate. At this point, you will feel that you are being suppressed by a big mountain, or you will feel that you are dragged into some kind of a dark hole, or sometimes you might feel that you have been dropped from a sky, or sometimes in your experience you hear all this loud noise. Or the bell ringing sound. After that, you might even experience colorful, rainbow-like visions. Or, for those who are familiar with the Vajrayana practice, within these rainbow, you might even see different deities, the wrathful and the peaceful deities. You will hear the sound of all kind, wrathful sounds like hum, hum, pay, pay, or these wrathful deities ordering to kill and destroy you. And then you will also experience 100,000 sun rising together kind of light. At that time, remember this word, do not get distracted. Don't be distracted. When you feel that you are being suppressed by the mountain, remember, no mountain is suppressing you. It's because all your elements are dissolving. That's why you feel that you are being suppressed. So please, don't be afraid. When you feel that you are being dragged into some kind of a dark hole, again, don't panic. Your sense and sense objects are beginning to dysfunction. That's why you feel that. It's nothing more than that. The feeling of being dropped from the sky is nothing but separation, the last and the final separation of your body and the mind. Your mind is now no more using the body as the container. This is why you feel that you have been dropped. That's all. Do not panic. When you see this rainbow color, this is nothing but actually your own mind's radiance. These wrathful and peaceful deities do not exist outside. It is all your mind's display. Similarly, the sound of hum hum, pepe, and all kinds of sound are your mind's sound display. The light is also light like 100,000 sun rising together. Is nothing but your own display. When these displays come, do not doubt, because the doubt will lead you to entanglement. Doubt will lead you to engrossment. At that time, convince yourself, have confidence that these are all your own perception or the display of your mind. If you keep on generating this confidence, then you will no doubt manage to dwell in the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. The protecting deity during this kind of fearful situation is no one but this mindfulness that you have. So at all times, remember the mindfulness. Remember to be mindful. The obstacle that can distract you is nothing but these distractions. These distractions will create doubt. So therefore, when you go through all this birth experience, whether they are good ones, whether they are bad ones, whatever comes, do not doubt, do not panic. If you fail to dwell in the three kayas in this stage, then next you will begin to see all the different womb of all kinds, animal womb, human womb, all the wombs as a comfortable dwelling place, like a bedroom, like a living room. When you begin to feel comfortable and when you feel like going there, don't rush into them. Don't get tempted. Instead, remember, if you have been introduced to the view by the Guru, remember this view again and again. And if your strength of the understanding of the view is not good enough, then there is still a way out. Don't forget to have aspiration again and again. Most importantly, have the aspiration to unite yourself with the Guru's mind. Then have the aspiration to reborn in a Buddha field, such as Sukravati, copper-colored mountain, so on and so forth. So therefore, try to replace your panic and distraction by remembering the Buddha field again and again and again. If the karmic force is so strong that you can't remember the names of the Guru, or you can't remember copper-colored mountain, so on and so forth, then have aspiration to reborn in a human realm where you will be reborn as a precious, you will be reborn as a human being who has all the precious human quality, where again you will meet the Dharma, have the opportunity to hear the Dharma and to practice the Dharma, and continue your practice of the Dharma, achieving enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Okay, so that's the end of the advice, and then he says, well, I have never given a short and precise and easy to remember advice so far. This is the last bit instructions. Now it is the time to go. So you guys should practice this, and if you do that, you will then reborn in the realm of the Dakini. And after saying that, Guru Rinpoche mounted rays of the sun and disappeared. That's it.
Jakob, you're muted.
So at this point, we'll just spend 3 minutes just essentially contemplating what Rinpoche said. If you are familiar with the practice of meditation, just simply settling into meditation. Otherwise, then just here we have a summary essentially of what Rinpoche was saying, the say important point. And let's see here. And then you can just read the quintessential points then that really constitutes the instructions that we are encouraged to familiarize ourselves with while we still have this extraordinary opportunity of the human situation. So let's just spend a few minutes just on that. So thank you very much. And I think at this point then, Ani Zangmo will continue. Are all the right conditions there for you to continue, Anila? I'll just do the scrolling if you read.
Thank you. That's great,
Okay.
Jakob. Thank you. So I'm going to take us through to the end of the chapter. I won't be unpacking anything because everything's perfect here. The certainty and uncertainty of death. For better or for worse, once we have stumbled into life through the process we call birth, the only thing we can be certain about is that we will die. But what none of us know for sure is precisely when death will happen. And it is this unsettling juxtaposition that makes death so fascinating to contemplate. The certainty that we will die is bad enough, but the uncertainty about when we will die is far worse. Like buying an expensive Tiffany necklace, but not knowing if you will ever get a chance to wear it. Paradoxically, uncertainty about the time of death is what forces us to make plans. It is because we are so unsure and uncomfortable that we fill our days with appointments. But however carefully we plan, there is no guarantee that anything will actually happen. Just by agreeing to see a friend in London on Friday doesn't mean the meeting will take place. Any number of imponderables could get in the way. None of your plans are likely to work out exactly as you expect. Not your children's future, or your grandparents' retirement, or your new flat, or that perfect business deal, or your dream holiday. They could fail completely, or succeed beyond your wildest dreams. After all, the unexpected isn't necessarily bad. The point is that whatever you do, however much effort you put into planning and scheduling, you can never be sure that any of it will happen. However strong your blind belief that everything always works out for the best, it rarely does. So the suffering you feel when your agenda collapses is entirely self-inflicted. Making plans and appointments is also a very efficient way of consuming your future. Think about it. Every minute you set aside for a meeting or an activity is used up long before it even arrives. And by making that appointment, you will now have the additional suffering of having to make sure your plans pan out. One of the main reasons we practice the Dharma is to prepare ourselves for certain death. For some, it is the only reason they practice, but that reason alone will make their Dharma practice worthwhile. These days, various aspects of the Dharma, like mindfulness, are becoming more and more popular, but rarely as a preparation for death, and definitely not as a preparation for what lies beyond death. Modern people meditate for every reason under the sun, except the most important one. How many Vipassana students meditate to prepare for death? And how many practice because they want to put an end to the cycle of death and rebirth for good? Most people meditate because they want to become better managers, or find partners, or feel happy, or because they long for a calm, stress-free mind and life. For them, meditation is a way of preparing for life, not death, and is therefore no less mundane than other worldly pursuits, like shopping, eating out, exercising, socializing. If all you care about is learning how to relax and unwind, meditation is probably not your best option. Smoke a cigar instead. It's far easier and more immediately effective way of relaxing yourself rather than meditation. Pour yourself a good single malt or browse through your social media pages. Sitting cross-legged with a straight back as you watch yourself breathe in and out is not only extremely boring, but for many of us quickly becomes physically painful. Most meditators end up spending more time worrying about whether they really are being mindful than actually practicing. And all that worry can't be good for your blood pressure, can it? Life is full of surprises. If you are reading this book to prepare yourself for the death of a terminally ill loved one, however young and healthy you are, there is no guarantee that it won't be you who dies first. So your best bet is to be ready for anything and fully aware of the realities of samsara. But if instead you hang on to your blind expectations and assumptions, if you remain oblivious to how things really are, if you are greedy, stupidly laid back, and if you continue to count on all your worldly plans working out perfectly, when the worst happens, your suffering will be excruciating and you won't be able to do a thing about it.
So I think we're concluding at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, this can be.
So we've completed the first chapter of Living is Dying, Will I Die?, where Rinpoche has discussed the uncertainty of death. And I think we're all in agreement that we are going to die. So next week we will start chapter 2, Preparation for Death and Beyond. And we'll be joined by guest speakers Annie Whitlock, Dr. Rachel Buckley and Di Cousins to explore what we need to think and talk about, how to approach making our wishes known. Each of the speakers are in the Living is Dying webpage if you want to have a little peek at them. And we'll be touching on advanced care planning. So if you want more information about advanced care planning, please go to Advanced Care Planning Australia or in your country to find the relevant documents. So perfect timing tonight that we can finish early and then listen to Rinpoche teach about loneliness. So let's dedicate together. This virtuous accumulation of merit we offer so that all obstacles dissolve, and that at the time of our death each of us may find ease in dying and swift rebirth in the pure land of great bliss, quickly gaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you next week. Just have a little look in.
Thank you.